Projects can stall for all sorts of different reasons: delays, unanswered questions, missed handovers, or even unexpected blockers. Whether you are yet to run a project, have run several, or even 100, keeping track of all these moving parts can feel overwhelming, and that is where a RAID log comes in. In this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to use a RAID log in project management. I'll be showing you examples of each and every item of a RAID log and walking you through a full RAID log template so that you can stay ahead of issues, keep your team aligned, and increase your chances of project success. But before we delve into that template and how you can create and manage this document yourself, let's begin with what RAID means. Now, this is an acronym and it stands for R for risks. These are things that could hurt the project. Assumptions. Now, these are things we believe are true but haven't yet proven. Then we have issues. These are problems that are happening right now. And then lastly, D stands for dependencies. Now, this is work or decisions that we rely on from others. Now, each one of these needs a slightly different response, and logging them all in one resource or sheet or document gives us a single source of truth. So as I previewed to you earlier, this is an example of what an optimized RAID log looks like. It's essentially a table with a series of different columns and data points that allow us to track these as a project unfolds. So a RAID log is typically created at the start of a project and it's worked on usually by the project manager throughout the duration of a project. So as you can see, we have various different columns in here. We have phase, task, description, impact, probability, mitigation action, RAID category, which we'll delve into further shortly, status, owner, date added, date due, last updated, comments and notes. Now, one thing I will say is that RAID logs can differ depending on your organization or your needs, but this template on screen has been created. I've used it in my organization for years, and it has been created to be useful regardless of your industry as well. So it's kind of more of a generic RAID log. Now, as you can see, we are in Google Sheets. Again, RAID logs can appear in different project management tools. It may even be in Excel. So long as it's in this format and it's regularly updated, that's what is important here. Now, if you do want to create a RAID log, I do have other videos on this channel. I will leave links in the description down below if you did want to watch those, or also pick up this template as well. You can do that through those links. Now, let me just walk you through a few other things, actually, I think that's important to mention. The way I've created this particular RAID log is via different phases. It may be that you don't require the kind of differentiation between phases, but this is kind of visible in this document. So we've got the planning phase as an example. We have an in progress where we can put any RAID item that's specifically in flight, deliverables, any RAID items that are specific to the outcome of the project, and results as well. So again, it may be that a RAID log doesn't have these sections, but I just wanted to draw that out at this stage of the video. Now let's have a look at an example of a risk, an example of an assumption, an example of an issue, and an example of a dependency so that you can understand the nuances between them and how this could look on a project. So this is a RAID log for an internal website redesign project. Okay, so all of these items are related to that. So the first is, this is a risk. So it could be for our internal website redesign that there's going to be content delays from HR. So it may be, so that's what we're going to put in the task. It's a short title for what the risk is. In description, what we're going to do here is we're just going to add some additional context. So it could be the HR team may not provide updated policy documents in time for upload to the new intranet. Now, the impact of this is going to be high. The probability of it happening is medium. Again, you just have to choose one of these drop downs depending on your risk or what's happening in your organization or the context. But this is how it would work for this example. And then the mitigation or action is what we're going to do against it. So we're going to schedule a content deadline 1 week earlier than needed and set a reminder to follow up. So that will help us to manage this risk, essentially. Now, we've already decided that this is a risk. The status is open. Now, the status column will typically have the ability for you to track where we're at with that particular item. The owner is Linda in this example, and she is the project manager. The date that this risk was added to the RAID log, the date that it's due, the date that this item was last updated in the RAID log, and then lastly, just a commentary field where we can add additional context. So we need to monitor with weekly check-ins. So that is how we'd go about adding, say, a risk to our RAID log. Now let's look at an assumption. Now just remember, what I'll do actually is I'll add the description to this sheet here as well, so you can understand exactly what they are. I'll put it in the description below. But let's have a look at an assumption. So remember, this is things we believe are true but haven't yet proven. So an example of this is that staff will access the intranet via desktop. Now, we are assuming that most employees will use desktop computers, not mobile devices, to access the intranet. Now, there's a medium impact if that were to happen, and the probability of it happening is high. Now, the mitigation or action for this is that we need to validate the assumption with an internal survey before finalizing the mobile design scope. Because if people are using, say, the mobile version, then we need to make sure that the website loads properly for them as well as desktop. That's essentially what this assumption is all about. Again, it's open. Alex, the UX lead, is responsible for this, and then we've got some additional comments on that. And some of the things we've done is we've sent a survey out to Slack to all the staff to make sure that this is we're on top of this assumption. So now what I've done is I've created an issue, but this is now in the in progress section because this is kind of underway. So this could be that the wireframes are not yet approved. Now, stakeholders haven't signed off on homepage wireframes, which has delayed the design. Again, this is just an example of an issue relating to this particular project. Impact will be high. The probability is low. Now, our mitigation action for this example is that we need to book design approval meeting with key stakeholders before the end of the week. Now, this, as I say, this is an issue. It's in progress. We are in the in progress section, so it has to be that drop down there. And Sam, the designer, is in charge of it. So we've booked a meeting for Friday morning to stay on top of this. Now, lastly, let's look at a dependency, or in other words, work or decisions we rely on from others. So the comms team need to provide a launch email. Now, the success of the intranet launch depends on the comms team drafting and scheduling the launch email. If they don't do this, we are in trouble. So I've put here medium, but this is probably critical in terms of the impact of this. And the probability, let's just say, is medium. As an example, we know the comms team aren't very forthcoming. So let's put this as medium. The mitigation and action: request a draft by the 20th of July and add to a shared Google Doc for review. And if we put this in place, chances are we'll get this email out. If we have a draft available to us, it will make sure that it is sent out when it needs to be. This is a dependency. It's open. Kate is responsible from comms, and we are going to flag in our weekly stand-up to make sure it gets done. So these are just examples of, risks, assumptions, issue, dependency. Of course, they'll depend on your projects, your context, your organization, but this is a living, breathing document. So over the course of the project, these will be updated. And when they're kind of finished, we'll put those as resolved or closed as an example, and we'll start adding more in. If they're open, then we'll start keeping these kind of columns updated. When it was last updated, we'll be adding additional notes, and we'll just stay on top of it. It's really important when you create a RAID log that, as I say, it's a living, breathing document. So I hope this video is useful and you now understand what a RAID log is and how to use it essentially, and what you need to document and when. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, drop them down below. If you do want to create a RAID log, as I say, there's videos on this channel, link in the description down below. And with that said, best of luck, over to you, and I hope you have an excellent day.